Welcome to this Psychological Resilience Skills to Embedding Your Techniques video. We do hope that you find it useful. Please share your thoughts in the comments and make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss any new content that we upload. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hope Frost, and on behalf of SBK Healthcare, I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on Psychological Resilience to Embedding Your Techniques. This is the second in a series. If you did miss the first webinar, not to worry, I'm sure you'll get a lot out of this session too, but you can catch up on it on our YouTube channel as well. So it's now time to get started, and I'm delighted to welcome your webinar leader, Cathe Gaskell, who is a Managing Director of the Results Company. Hi, Cathe.
Hi everyone, welcome to the second webinar I've done on psychological resilience skills. I'm really excited to be here, and I've got some new things to share with you, but also I'm really interested in hearing your stories and finding out what you're doing about resilience, because this is such a developing and important field. So as I said, I'm really excited to talk to you about well-being and resilience, my journey, what I'm learning, but also go through some tips with you that I've been using for the last 6 months. So let's make this as interactive as possible. And if there was one thing I wanted to get out of today, it's that you'd leave feeling a little bit more hopeful. So that's my aim for the session. I have got some learning outcomes on, and really it's about sharing information on resilience. I want you to feel that you're not alone, because I've been working in healthcare 30 years really in the NHS, and this is unprecedented times of stress. So I want us to realise that we're not alone. We're going through this with other people, and let's grab the ideas that other people are using that help us. I want to revisit some tips that I talked about last time, and then I want to take you into a deep dive on 3 tips that I'm finding really helpful. So I want to share my story with you and hope it will be useful for you. So, oh gosh, this is a big one, the impact of COVID on our resilience. So if I maybe just say in a couple of words, what is resilience? We're hearing about it so much. Resilience used to be described as that bounce back we develop during adverse events. And I talked a little bit last seminar that it's been sort of studied from the 70s, and people have looked at it and looked after children. So when people talk about resilience, they're talking about bounce back, adaptability, and how we react post-serious event. Now, we're changing the language around that really to navigate, because this pandemic, we might not bounce back in the same way. So now when I think about resilience, I think about lots of tips and things I do differently to help me navigate my way through this pandemic. So please take heart that resilience can be learned. It's a mixture of skills. So please take heart that it can be learned. I'm doing all sorts of little different things that I didn't do before, and I used to train in resilience. So it's really changed my mind to all the different things out there that I can do to build up my psychological resilience and embed it. And as I said last time, I think this is a journey I'm going to be on for life. I don't think I'll ever be able to stop investing in my resilience, because it makes such a big difference to my well-being. One of the issues about our resilience and why it's so stretched at the moment is the unpredictability of COVID. We don't know how long it's going to last. Many adverse events in our life that we've been through, could be a divorce or even moving house or changing job, adverse events, difficult events, they have a length of time that we can predict. COVID doesn't, and that lack of control also impacts on our resilience. So you're not alone. Many of us are feeling incredibly stressed, stretched. This is the time to start navigating with these new skills to build ourselves up, build our well-being up. So why is resilience important now? I really wanted to talk to you for 3 reasons at this moment. 1, because I'm training across the NHS and I see how tired people are. People are tired at the moment. 2, we're on the peak of wave 2. And, you know, this started out as a sprint in March. You know, we were on it, working from home, doing all sorts of things. Oh my gosh, it's turning into a marathon. So resilience has never been more important. And then the 3rd reason I wanted to talk to you is Christmas. Christmas is stress in itself, isn't it? So we've got 3 different loads on us at the moment. We're already tired. we're at this peak again, we're facing this again, and we've got Christmas coming up. So actually working on resilience now is really, really essential. So I'm so pleased to be able to see you before Christmas and give you some of these ideas to try. So I talked about my resilience and where I get an understanding from resilience from last time, and that really was positive psychology. And I mentioned in it the father of positive psychology, someone called Martin Seligman, a psychologist who gives us a lot of the information we have now about how our brains work and how our rewiring our brain, which is a phrase we're hearing a lot in the pandemic, rewiring, thinking differently, using positive psychology is really helpful. And if I just take you for the first three that you can read up more on, they've been proven. So these are evidence-based techniques. These are evidence-based ones. So Martin Seligman was asked to do some resilience training with the American Army. He was working with a load of soldiers, and one of the first things he found, that's why that phrasing is hunt for the good in the workday, is actually that if we train our brain to see positive things, it will also spot them, because we often scan for threats. We know that our brain is often over busy, we scan for threats. So Martin Seligman's idea is hunt for the good in a workday. And a simple technique is to think of 3 good things that happen today. Now you're going to think, that's so simple, how will that work? It's helping move us from those spiraling negative thoughts when we feel very stressed. Hunt for the good in a workday. Evidence-based. It's an exercise you can do every day, and it's also really important to start embedding this in work, which we'll talk a bit more about later. Another thing is reframing negatives. Now, isn't this one that we've used a lot during COVID, because it would be easy to get down in that ditch and say, ain't it bad, ain't it awful? And sometimes we do that. But reframing negatives into learning. So really taking those difficult situations and saying, okay, I didn't get that job. That's okay. It must have been right for me. I wasn't right for them. I can turn this into something else. Or really helping reframe. That patient made a complaint. I'm really upset about that. Okay, we can learn from that. What can we take away from that to change our service, to improve it? So reframing is a tool that doesn't deny that something's bad happened, because that's not what resilience is about. It's not saying that bad stuff isn't happening. It's saying how we deal with it is really important, because you can either learn from it or dismiss it. What do those patients know? They're really ungrateful. Reframing negatives into something learning is a really helpful tool in managing high stress. And then thirdly, managing catastrophic thoughts. And this is again from the work of Dr. Karen Rivich. Now she's an American psychologist who works with people going through major incidents. And she's done a lot of work about how we ruminate as humans. We go over things and we try and make sense of them. And to stop those catastrophic thoughts, which don't help us, don't add any value, we do 3 things. We need to check if it's real. Is this really going to happen? 2, we need to reframe it. And 3, we need to make a plan, because the brain can only do one thing at once. So you can either worry and stay awake all night, which I have done many times during this pandemic, or you can use techniques to manage catastrophic thoughts. So it's really worth looking at. So that's the work of Dr. Karen Rivich, and she helps people move on from major incidents by grabbing hold of their thoughts and not letting them overtake them. The other tips are increasing social contacts outside of work. And this is almost hard to do, isn't it, when so many of us are locked down at the moment, or our tiers have increased. But that social contact is a really good protective factor. So I've been talking to a lot of people about how do you improve making sure that you are staying in touch with people, that you're not just going to work and isolating yourself. It's so important to stay in touch with people and make sure we keep that contact going. The other one is building gratitude, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later today. But the last one is savoring enjoyable experiences. And this is one that Dr. Laurie Santos talks about. When we have something good that happens, spend time thinking about it. It might have been a holiday, it might have been a meal you enjoyed, it could have been that great cup of coffee on the way to work. Savor it, think about it, because it actually calms us, but also makes us feel positive. And those little windows of positivity in a day are what build your resilience. So resilience is like a big bucket, pandemics kicked it over. I'm trying to build up my resilience, and I want to build my resilience up because I know that if my well-being is on parity with my physical health, my immune system is going to stay stronger. So as somebody who's been shielding most of the time, I'm really conscious of my physical and mental well-being. What can I do while I'm working to make myself feel better, feel more resilient? Okay. So I've done all those things. I've been practicing all those things. I've been talking about resilience when a few weeks ago, I realized I needed to do more. So this is where I started to think about the benefits of gratitude, because gratitude is a bit like the new superfood for the brain. Everyone's talking about it. They're talking about how gratitude can really help change our thoughts at difficult times, can help build relationships, and that gratitude is a real life changer, practicing it. So I want to talk to you about gratitude and what I've done and why I've done it. So gratitude sounds so simple. Let me take you through why try gratitude. So I think everybody likes it when someone's grateful. It's so nice to hear back that something you've done has been appreciated. Some people say, oh, I don't need gratitude, but we all do. It's so nice to get feedback and thankfulness. How many times have we said as parents, how kids are so ungrateful? Gratitude is important to us as humans. It's something we can give. It's for free. It really only takes some time, but it's very good at changing your mindset. And that's what I'm looking for, moving away from that hopelessness, helplessness. Martin Seligman talks about us feeling victims into feeling in more control. So gratitude is really important. And that's why I chose to deep dive into it, understand what does this gratitude look like? And the benefits of gratitude, oh my gosh, there's so many. So grateful people have better relationships, they have better health, improves empathy. Everybody likes to talk to someone who's empathic. It improves self-esteem, and it also improves sleep. So that's something that's really important for me. So I'm a worrier. When I worry, I don't sleep. So again, oh gosh, I want to know more about gratitude. What can I do to increase gratitude? Because that will make me feel more resilient, but will also help my health. Okay, so I started a gratitude experiment. And the reason for this was, oh gosh, I felt really low. So here I am, I train in resilience, and got the news out that we were going into tier 3. So I've just become a grandma, and I'm so excited and looking forward to seeing the baby. Can't do it. We're in tier 3, baby's in tier 2. And for really one of the first times during this thing, I just really hit a wall. I've tried savoring and I just really hit a wall. I felt, oh my gosh, my resilience is running low. I need to do something. So I know that gratitude is this new sort of superfood for the brain. I wonder what I can do. So I was actually not sleeping, wake at about midnight, and I thought, I know, I'm going to try gratitude. I've got to do something to make me feel better, that I can get through this. And I had this idea, when did I last feel influenced? When did I first get influenced about my life? You know, who were some of the first people that influenced me? And I thought, what about my high school teacher? I wonder if I could track her down. And I remember my English teacher in high school was a lady called Miss Hearn, and I last saw my English teacher when I was about 16. So I thought, I wonder if she's still teaching. Maybe I can write to her and just tell her how grateful I was that she inspired me to write. And anyway, so when you're up at midnight and you're Googling and everything, I found her, sent her an email, and decided, right, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So this was the start of my gratitude experiment. I thought for 21 days, I'm going to contact people who've influenced me. Now, 21 days is specific because that's how you set a habit. You need to do something for 21 days to build it into a habit. And I'm going to think about people who've influenced my career, and maybe this will help me feel better. 1, it's a distraction. And 2, maybe I can make them feel better, but I'm feeling so desperate I'm going to do something. So that was born as a midnight thought that I started about 3.5 weeks ago. Right, and then I thought, right, okay, I'm not going to expect anything in return because gratitude has got to be given without wanting anything back. and I'm going to write to people and tell them how they influenced me. And I woke up the next morning, got my experiment going, and Miss Hearn had written back. So my high school teacher had written back, and oh gosh, I got like a double bump because she said, "I'm in tears reading your letter." Oh, by the way, she's from New Zealand. That's why it went through at midnight and she got it. And you can see my little map up there showing I'm from New Zealand. So she got the letter and she said, you know, it meant such a lot to me because I've been teaching for years and you don't always hear how your pupils turn out. So it was so important to me that you let me know, and thank you so much. And so I got this warm feeling and thought, right, I'm going to do this gratitude experiment. This is what I learned. So I got some pictures up of some of the people that got back in touch with me. So I have contacted 39 people over 21 days, and 21 got back in touch with me. So remember, not everyone is going to write back and say, "Cathe, I remember you." They're not going to, but you are doing something. You are distracting yourself, but also doing some good, because gosh, I could certainly write to 39 people and complain it's awful, but I wrote to them and thanked them for their influence on my career. I reached back to some managers, someone I hadn't spoken to for probably 25 years. I reached back to a colleague I hadn't worked with in 10 years. I've had some great phone calls from this, but these are my heroes that I'm putting up for you. So the first picture, that is Miss Hearn. That's a photo of her. I found her on a website. She wrote back, yeah, she was my teacher and she was really moved. The next picture is Bola, who is a coach who teaches me loads about conflict, and he was really pleased that I reached out and said, "I know I see you all the time, Bola, but I really appreciate you. I'm grateful for what you've taught me." Sarah, underneath, is a paramedic, incredibly hardworking paramedic on the front line, who is a bit of a gratitude angel. She writes to people every week. I don't know how she got the energy. She sends cards, notes, letters, and tells people that they're important. And I've been lucky enough to be the recipient of that. I think everybody needs a gratitude angel. And Jim. Jim used to work in East London. If anybody from East London's on the line, Jim was a manager in the adult mental health services, and he now works in learning disability services, and he was an important influence on my life. So they're just a sample of the people that came back to me, but it has had an influence on me, because I realize that these people still influence me in some particular way because of their values and their behaviors, but also they live in optimism. I realize that actually these people live in optimism. So this experiment of gratitude, you may not always get to hear back from everybody, but you can have an influence on some people's lives. And I see it maybe like planting seeds. You might not always know if they're going to grow, but it does make a huge difference. The other lessons I learned is showing gratitude is hard work. Now, I think I'm quite optimistic. Oh gosh, doing this for 21 days was pretty hard work. You might think you're optimistic, but in this time of the pandemic, my optimism has dropped. And I haven't always found it easy to say, thank you very much for what you did for me. I really appreciate it, because my resilience has been down. So actually, it's an awareness for me that my gratitude, I need to up my game, because I talk about it, but it was actually really hard to do. I needed that discipline of 21 days. And some days I didn't feel like doing it, but I've made a commitment and it was worth pursuing. Showing gratitude is intentional. Actually, we need to think about it. So often we just take people for granted. So gratitude isn't easy, always. You've got to be intentional, and actually it improved conversations. So when I'd approached some people and just written to them, text them, or told them how grateful I was, conversations really improved because people like to hear. So it was a good experiment for me, and it certainly lifted me out of feeling hopeless. How are we going to get out of this pandemic? It changed. It started to change my shift of feeling more positive. So embedding, I want to think about gratitude at work, and looking at gratitude. Some of the things that other people are doing is keeping a gratitude diary. So if you want to embed this journey of gratitude, and we know it's so good for us, keeping a gratitude diary. Some people have talked about having a gratitude stone on their desk, and every time they're at work and they touch it, they think, right, one thing to be grateful for. Other people are embedding it in work in the huddle. So every huddle in the morning, thinking about 3 things that went well the day before. Supervision, bringing it into supervision. Actually, when we're talking to our managers, thinking about what's gone well, what we're grateful for, the support we've had. Team meetings. I've managed to encourage some team meetings. I mentioned this last time, some groups are having a wonderful Wednesday where they meet as a team and they actually talk about what's going right, what the learning is, what the positives are. Team away days. I know some people are planning virtual team away days, bringing gratitude into that. And the other one is gratitude buddies. So I talked about Sarah, who's been really important in my journey. She does it for herself. She feels great doing it, but having people who are mutually positive and grateful. So this is not saying all the bad stuff won't happen. It's not pretending we're not in a pandemic, but all the evidence is that if we can see the positives, it helps us keep going and be more healthy and resilient. So that's my gratitude, my little gratitude stuff. And also you can see here some further benefits. Happiness goes up, improves my health. But this is the one I also want to move on to next. I want to talk to you about sleep, because this is such a big issue for so many people working in the NHS at the moment. So I'm going to move on to sleep now and talk to you about that. So we all know that sleep's been seriously affected by COVID. Number of things. Also, it's our winter months, social isolation, because we are creatures who thrive on talking and meeting people. All of those things. So everything I look at about sleep says it's normal. It is normal for us to have a less quality sleep within the pandemic. What we don't want to do is make this a habit, because obviously depleted sleep, you know, it affects your ability to function, make decisions, your rationality can go down. If we have continued poor sleep, it's really poor, you know, it really affects our physical health as well as our well-being. So I really wanted to think about, what can I do? So I use managing catastrophic thoughts a lot. What else can I do to really invest intentionally in improving sleep? Now this is the biggest one. Oh my gosh, who doesn't look at their phone all the time? Phone is so critical to the blue light, which we know affects our sleep ability. It's really important. It's evidence-based. Try not to look at your phone for an hour before you go to sleep. It really shows a big improvement in my ability to sleep. We know that we look at the news, of course we do, but actually turning off your phone an hour before you go to sleep, or not looking at it, is really, really important. It helps get your sleep cycle back into routine. It's probably one of the biggest tips I can give people. Turn off that phone before you go to bed, and your laptop not working in your room, which I do, but really, really trying to think, okay, I'm investing in me, because I want to stay well, I want to stay resilient. Phone, turn it off. I also have an app on my phone which tells me how many hours a day I am, and I aim to reduce that all the time. So yes, I use my phone as a tool for work, but be aware that it does seriously impact on sleep, your ability to sleep, because of the blue light. There's lots of stuff out there about sleep hygiene. How many of us are taking time to look? I'm a nurse. I've got to look at self-care. So there's lots of tips on sleep hygiene, but it's something that I don't think we always invest in, because we're really good at advice giving. But as a nurse, I'm not very good at advice taking. So this pandemic has been really important for me to prioritize my health, because if I'm not healthy, you know, it's the old story of you put your oxygen mask on first on the plane. I can't give people advice if I'm not thriving and healthy and resilient. So intentional sleep hygiene has been really important. One of the tips for me is keeping my bedroom really cool, not having the bedroom really warm at night. But there's so much out there that's free on sleep hygiene, but it is crazy if we don't take time to read it. There's so many things we can do to improve our sleep. So please think about the phone, think about the coolness of your room, look at some of the free stuff that's out there. The other thing, sleep aids. So on my last webinar, I put up a list of free apps that the NHS has got out there for us. I found a couple more free things that you just might want to look at. So people often sleep better and feel calmer if they have any of these 4 sounds. So nature, flowing, fire, calming music. So evidence is that this is a really good way of winding down. The Soothing Sleep Sounds app is free. It's not going to cost you anything. You can download it and you can select from some of these things. And again, these are really good cues to the brain to wind down. Really important to think about what we can use to just reduce our anxiety and get us to have a good sleep. And also the mental well-being audio guides, they were quite interesting. They just talk about why we might not be sleeping, why anxiety drives cortisol and why that keeps us up. So again, I know we know this stuff, but we've got to look after ourselves. So I am really determined to improve my sleep. So again, how do I embed this? Because I've set myself a goal. I want to make sure I get my 8 hours a night and I can feel refreshed and focused and healthy. So I'm investing time in reading about it and making sure I read. But now, you're going to say, how's this going to help me with work? It's not necessarily going to help your workmates, but it is going to help you. So some of these resilient tips about you, it may not change your workmates. They can do what they want. You have to look after you at this point. So this is a very sort of person-centric one. Okay, and then coming on to some of the last stuff. Oh my gosh, some of this I sort of talked about last time. But these are some things that I just find easy to lose. A bit like, you know, when you're in that tunnel and you just see everything negative, actually there's good stuff happening all the time. It's good stuff happening all the time. So appreciate the small things. This again is pretty much outside of work. So this is like Cath's resilience plan, outside of work. Appreciate the small things. So easy. Oh gosh, when you meet people and they want to tell you about how bad everything is and how, you know, it's just terrible and this isn't working. Okay, I'm not saying that's not right, but what about the small things? So I'm really taking time to notice the small things that I enjoy. As I said, so Sunday night now is bad film night, whether it's Love Actually or Notting Hill or any of those old films. I do something that I enjoy. So appreciate the small things. Making time for rituals is really healthy now when we have stress overload and the newspapers are going on about Brexit and pandemic and Christmas. Make time for some inner calm. So do the small things. Skype calls. I had a really cool Skype call, which I'll tell you about in a minute, last night. Make time to put nice stuff in. So you don't have to wait for the weekend. Put nice stuff in outside of work. Make room for passion now. Definitely, this is outside of work. This is, don't just, I've got to make sure I get this right. I think we work to live, but we don't live to work. So work is so consuming at the moment. My brain can be rattling on. Actually, make room for passion. What hobbies have you got? Why would they stop? What else do you like doing? I know we're in the house, many of us. Some of us are working from home. Passion is a great way to find the joy. And what are you interested in? What are your hobbies? What could you do from home? What do you like to do? I like to look at old houses. I like to read magazines. I like to find ways to lose myself on Pinterest. Now, you're going to say, can I do that at work? No. This is building up your resilience when you're not at work by putting your brain onto something else. It's also okay to distract yourself. So make room for passion, make room for good things that you enjoy. It isn't just about the NHS and work, although that's very central to all of us. There's life outside. And none of us are indispensable. Now that's very hard because sometimes we think we are. But actually, there's life outside. Now, I say this because I've lost 7 colleagues in this pandemic. 7 people I know have died. So I'm really into making every day count and making time outside of work count. And that comes to that last one, seek out positive people. Because actually, sometimes positive people are the best medicine. You can lift up, you can think about great things. So going back to seeking out positive people, maybe I think I called it find fellow travelers. Find people who are on the same path as you and say, I know that work is really important and crucial to us. Of course it is. And we take this so seriously, but also there's life outside of work. This time will pass. and our life will carry on. So when I was 22, I went traveling on my own. I went traveling around the world, and at some point I met a fellow traveler. So I met an American guy, and we traveled for a bit through some countries. Anyway, we have reconnected 30 years later. And actually, I Skyped him last night. He's also very positive. America's going through a similar journey to us in terms of COVID and the effect. And he's a fellow traveler. He's someone who loves traveling. And I know we can't travel now, and maybe we can't for several years, but my mind can also future focus and look at some of those positives coming up that will help me cope with today. So find fellow travelers. They could be workmates, they could be outside of work. Find people who will help you see the positive. Lockdown toolkit, that's a simple one. I sometimes have this on my phone because I like to remember, brain chemicals. So we know about the brain chemicals. Sometimes we can do little things to help lift ourselves. So I know dopamine, I'm strongly in dopamine, the reward chemical. So I like to celebrate little wins. I have lists, self-care activities. Yep. Oxytocin, I boosted that by doing my gratitude exercise. I was giving compliments. I was telling people how much they meant. That helped me. It helped me. So I got some oxytocin rushing around. I have this on my phone just to remind myself. I know it's very simple, but it just reminds me, have I done enough of these today? Have I gone outside? It's really important. Am I getting outside? Have I done any meditation? I've got a dog. Yes, I play with him, but yes, so it just helps me keep that balance that is filling my resilience up, building my resilience up. So just a silly little thing, but I find it a little prompt on my phone, and I check that sometimes and think, okay, what do I need to do? And really, we're coming to the end, so I can take your questions. But for me, developing resilience is about balance and intentions. So balance is, some days I'm going to be sad, and some days I'm going to be really stressed, and some days I'm going to feel like I can't cope, and that's okay. But I'm also going to come up again the next day because I've got some tools I can use to help me come through that. And I'm intentional now about doing good stuff. It doesn't just randomly happen. I'm intentional about making sure I can sleep, my gratitude list, some of the other things, my savoring. I'm intentional because I know with all the pressure we're under, the anxiety of COVID, that if I'm not intentional, it'll get lost and I'll just be pulled along. So for me, being intentional and taking these steps deliberately to put up my resilience is really helpful. And I've also talked about writing a resilience plan. So resilience is hard to find in the middle of the night when you're thinking, oh gosh, I've got another shift tomorrow. I'm really worried about my colleagues. This has just gone so wrong. Actually, when you've got your resilience plan, that's when you need it. Like, look at my phone and I go, okay, I can do these things. Because when I'm very pressured, I'm not always logical. I can go into spiraling thoughts of, oh gosh, it's all going wrong. So my resilience plan is actually helpful to remind me, actually, it's okay to have a bad day. Things are going to go wrong some days. I'm going to have conflict, but it's going to bounce back up again. So it's all about that balance. It will bounce back up again. I've got confidence that it will bounce back up. I've got hope that this time will pass and life will be different. It may not be the same as it was before, but this time will pass and we'll move forward. So I've got some more information for you if you want to look up further resources, which I hope are helpful. I'm always into reading and finding what I can out about resilience to help share with people and pass on. And then finally, I'm going to hand back to Hope to see if you've got any questions, if there's anything I can help you with.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Cathe. That was wonderful. Just while we wait for people's questions to come in, I did spot one in the chat box earlier on. Someone wrote, how do you cope with patients or staff members when you're feeling really rubbish yourself? When you're coping with a huge tragedy, like I am with the fact that my 2 grown-up children have died in an accident, I'm really struggling with people's petty moans when my world has collapsed.
Of course, that's just so sad. And I'm really sorry to hear that. The one thing is, we can't always cope alone. And I believe we need to take advantage of the counselling services that are out there. This isn't something we can shoulder on our own. That's a tragedy in itself, terrible tragedy, without having to work in the field of caregiving. So one of the things I'd say is ask for help, reach for help. If you are having counselling or you're talking to someone, that's fantastic. Really think, is your work able to support you at this time? Because this is what we're all about. We need to support each other. Is your work able to support you in this time? Are you in an area where you are emotionally supported to do the job you need? Because it may be that you need to transfer out or do something else so that you can build up your resilience. When people have gone through this terrible grief, at times actually taking that time to have grief counselling and work through it is so important, because you're trying to work in a pandemic under the threat of COVID, and you've also had your own personal tragedy. So I really feel that one is one where you get the extra help. You ask for help and you get it, and you really ask for work to support you in the environment that you're working in, because this is such a big burden you're carrying. And I'm really sorry to hear that this loss has been visited on you, and I just hold in my heart that hope will come again.
Thanks, Kath. A few people are asking if we can go back a slide so that we can see the resources again. And I'm just waiting for people to ask some questions. I can't believe there haven't been any so far, apart from that one. Unless I've missed them. If I've missed them, please do write them in the Q&A box. So we've got a little while, so Kath is here to help with anything that you might want to share. We'll have lots of messages coming through. Oh, someone's asked which app you recommend for building resilience.
There's quite a few. So what might be good is if I get a slide from the last session I did and put it into this pack. So there's quite a few that different trusts, I think Energy Improvement are buying for us. So there's quite a few around Sleepio. There's one called Liberate, which is really, really good. That gives us lots of little mindfulness tips and tips to help us think. If I give you this set, I would say try them out. Try out ones that are free, because I don't want you to spend money buying these things. But yeah, Liberate, Sleepio. There's one called Unmind that's really good. And then there's the one that I put on there about sleep. So there's apps out there, there's free help out there as well. There's lots of people wanting to help the NHS staff. There's free help out there. You don't have to go through this on your own. You do have to make time to look for the help and take it though, because you don't want to get stuck in a bog and think, how am I going to get out? Get the help now. So if I can send you out those sheets, I don't mind doing a help sheet of interesting or useful apps for people to try, if that's helpful.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you. Someone has asked, how do you bring up the subject of resilience and gratitude with patients? I don't want to sound condescending about being grateful.
I don't think you can. That's a funny one. I don't think you can. I think that gratitude has got to be within our teams and it's got to be within us. But I don't think you can, because I think patients may feel that you're implying they should be resilient or grateful. What we can do is have resources for people. So there are resources, and that might be more helpful to give people a fact sheet or a sheet of information. But you can't tell someone they need to be more resilient, because I guess when someone's coming to you and they're broken and they're wanting your support and help, patients, we aren't able to give them that advice unless they specifically say, where can I get help on gratitude or resilience? You can say, there's a list. There are resources. There's something you can go to. I wish we could talk to patients about being grateful, because it actually might be really useful, but I think we can't. I think this is for us to do in our teams and with each other and maybe with our families, so that we stay resilient. And very much within the team that you're working in, it's really important. But I think unless patients are asking for it, the other way is that the chaplaincy might find it. So when people come and visit, or pals or complaints, they might be able to give people information on that. But chaplaincy, certainly in most hospitals, will probably benefit from having some information on resilience, that people come in and they're feeling so in pieces that they've got something to give them. So I'm happy to pull together some sort of fact sheets on things if that people think that's interesting or useful.
Thank you, Cathe. And so how can you practice resilience when you are struggling inside and you aren't as sociable?
Oh gosh, it's not easy. Practicing gratitude isn't easy. I guess some of the things you can do without being an external person. So for example, savouring. If you have a memory that you particularly enjoy, if you have something that you've done that brings you happy memories, you can actually spend some time thinking about it. Now, when you think about something, you're reliving it. You're also boosting that feeling of positivity. That's in your own head. The other thing is that people do meditation. Now, you don't have to do this with other people. You can actually do something called a meta meditation, which is saying a phrase of positive words to yourself. Now, that's been seen to be very calming before work. And it might be something as simple, I had it up last time, as may I be healthy, may I stay, calm today, this will be a good shift. You say positive messages to yourself. Now, you don't have to tell anybody you're saying them, but they are a really great way. They've proven to be helpful in calming us when we feel anxious or feel overwhelmed. So meditation, just taking a few minutes. You could do it before work. You could do it on the journey to work. You could do it in the lunch break. I'm talking just a few minutes of calm, positive affirmations. And they will help your resilience by finding that positivity and holding on to it, particularly when things are so difficult at the moment. What I know won't work, which we do, is say, God, it's hard. This is terrible. Nothing works here. It's getting worse. Yeah, we all want to have a moan. We all do. Of course we do. But misery loves company. And sometimes when you're saying that, everyone else piles in and goes, oh, it's terrible. I know that the shift will go longer when you're with a group of people who are seeing all the problems, all the faults. I'm not saying resilience is magical. What I am saying, it's part of building up your ability to cope with the prolonged stress that we are under with the pandemic. So it's like a jigsaw. You've got to put different parts in. And what we want to do is we want to get through this. We want to get through this. We want to get through this with our well-being intact, and our lives haven't stopped. Our lives haven't stopped because of the pandemic. I want the resilience tips to be helpful for you to carry on and be enabled to still have a life, because we have a life outside of work. That's what I'm looking for, to bring that hope. But this time will pass, so while we're in it, while we're going through it, and it's really hard, let's try some of these things. And what have you got to lose by trying them? The stuff I'm giving you is free. You don't have to pay for any of the things I'm sending you. They're free websites, they're free apps. All you got to do is invest in a little bit of time to try them.
Brilliant, thank you. So someone's written, I don't want to sound cynical or ungrateful. How do you gauge genuine gratitude or otherwise?
I don't think you have to gauge it. I wouldn't worry about it. If somebody says, I really appreciate what you've done is amazing, accept it as genuine. I don't think you want to second guess it. It doesn't matter whether they mean it or not. Just accept it. Accept it. You know what? So many of us are clunky in the words we use. This is one of our issues. We sometimes say things wrong. And maybe we say it and it appears we're being sarcastic. Accept the intention. The intention is to be kind. The intention is to be good. Accept that. So remember, intent and impact. Sometimes my intention is to be helpful, but the impact might not be. That's because I'm human and I get the words wrong sometimes, or the tone, or the syntax, or maybe I'll say it in a way that isn't right. But I would have that positive view in my head. They mean it. They're giving me a compliment. They like what I've done. Accept it. Take that piece of gratitude. Don't question it.
Brilliant. How could gratitude be encouraged within a team who have struggled with a high level of anxiety during the pandemic?
Oh gosh, yeah, this is one that I see a lot. So some of the things I was talking about is building gratitude into business as usual. So I'm talking to teams who are feeling the same way and thinking about how in your huddle can you talk about 3 things that went well the day before. What 3 things went well? So making it business as usual. Talk about it in the huddle. Talk about it in supervision. Talk about it in meetings, because we've got to find the good stuff that works. The patient that didn't die, the relative who was happy, the shift ended on time. Find it, hold on to it. It helps our brains in the rewiring process that's been written about. We can either see, so it's a bit like, if I say, right, don't look for the red in a room. Instantly, the red jumps out. If you start to note gratitude and write it down and talk about it, so bring it into work, definitely bring it into meetings, make it normal, you will spot it more. Because patients can be grateful and colleagues can be lovely and good things can happen. And not every day is a bad day. Sometimes in the worst days, your colleagues come together and you get that collegiate feeling. Grab onto those bits when it's so dark. Now, this is evidence-based. Again, psychologists are telling us, even in the midst of something really difficult, find the glimmer of something that went well and hold on to it. It's about rewiring our brain to see the goods, rewiring our brain to see the red in the room. There are good stuff that's happening. There is good stuff still happening. There is kindness. There is hopefulness. There are patients who are recovering. We are learning a lot about this disease. We are changing things. Some people are saying, I hate COVID, but I like the fact that I don't have a 3-hour commute. There is good stuff there. And that's why that phrase is hunt for the good. But bring it into work. Bring it into daily practice at work. So one care home I work with has a wonderful Wednesday. So when they have the team meeting, they start the team meeting by everybody saying something good. Something good. You've got to work on that. So easy to find something bad. So easy to think this went wrong. But that doesn't help us cope. It doesn't help us cope well. Actually, gratitude is really good evidence base for making us feel better. And this isn't easy stuff. I'm not giving you easy stuff to do. I'm giving you hard stuff to do. But I'm giving you stuff that's evidence-based that will help pull us forward in this very difficult time so we come out the other end.
Thank you. And the next question is, how do you recommend getting over the idea that we aren't replaceable? This gets in the way of not taking annual leave, as well as overextending ourselves and burning out.
Oh gosh, well, if I had that answer, I'd be a millionaire. So I think that this goes back to sometimes why we work in the NHS. Because we're caregivers, we love giving care. How can I model and be taken seriously as a caregiver if I don't care for myself? So some of this is about self-awareness and some of this is about reflection. So if you are working with a colleague who doesn't take annual leave, really need to get some self-awareness in there. And sometimes I say to someone who's finding it difficult to make a decision, what advice would you give a friend? What would you say if a friend was working extra hours, doing extra shifts and couldn't stop? What would you give what advice? And people can a lot of times see that, oh, okay, I think that friend's going to head for burnout. We know that very long hours, you're more at risk of burnout. Your immunity could drop, so you're more unlikely to become unwell. So what advantage is there in working this hard for this long? There is nothing wrong with self-care. In fact, I would say it's essential. Self-care is one of your essential skills. You need to be able to look after yourself. You need to, if you can, help your colleagues. Self-care. We will not survive this if we all become martyrs to we've got to work every day, every shift. This doesn't help people, because when I'm tired, I make less good decisions. And clinically, that's really important.
Yeah. So we've got quite a lot of questions coming through now, so we'll try and get through them as quickly as possible. This one is about, as a whole team dealing with other members testing positive, everybody's scared and angry, how can we reassure each other?
I think that's just human. So many teams are testing positive, and it's a shock. It's upsetting. I'm not sure about angry, because if you're frontline and working in the hospital, it's almost a bit of an occupational hazard, unless people are flagrantly ignoring good universal hygiene I think it is really difficult, isn't it? It's so difficult when we're facing something as scary and as threatening as this. So some of the things that I use are going back to, how do you manage a catastrophic thought? So the catastrophic thought is, my team's got COVID, we're going to get it, we're all going to die, what are we going to do? And so how psychologists say we should deal with that is we once say, what's the logic? Am I likely to get it? Yep, okay, maybe I am because I was in contact with that person. Right, okay, how can I reframe this? Well, we know so much more about COVID. We know that many people survive it. We know there's many things we can do to help ourselves. Okay, reframe that learning and then make a plan. So make a plan. If I get COVID, what can I do? Who can I help? Have I got enough food? And how will I manage? Make a plan for the worst eventuality. And that can sometimes stop you feeling out of control. Because COVID takes our control away. People feel terribly frightened. See if you can get some control back, and that making a plan. So, yep, I can get through this. I've got enough food in. I know what to do. I'll be able to stay at home. I've got people who can help. Make a plan, because that gives your brain something to focus on rather than the anxiety. And that's how actually Martin Seligman dealt with it. Martin Seligman is the father of positive psychology. He was 77. He said, could die from COVID. He had to manage his catastrophic thoughts by going through that. What's the logic? Yes, I could get it. 2, America's having 3,000 people a day develop COVID. 2, how can I reframe this? If I get it, I know what to do. I've got good health providers. I know what I can do. And his plan was then in more detail. Who will look after me? How will I stay healthy? How can I recover? What will I do to get through this? So take back that control and think how we manage this catastrophic thought.
Thank you. The next question is, how can you practice resilience when most of the staff you work with are negative?
Oh, I know, that's so hard. One of the things you can do is look after yourself. I agree. I sometimes do this and people are like, no one in our team's going to do this. And I think, well, how's it worked for you so far? How's it worked for you not trying this, being cynical and saying, ain't it bad? It hasn't worked that well. So what have you got to lose by trying this? What have you got to lose by doing something different? If you can't change your team, you can change yourself. You can say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to invest in me. I'm going to be more healthy. I'm going to leave, I'm going to take time to be intentional. You're not one of a herd. You're your own person. I'm asking people to stand up and look after their own resilience. Ideally, our workplaces should be encouraging resilience, and some of them are. Some hospitals are doing great stuff on resilience. Some care homes are doing really good stuff, but some aren't. You have to be responsible for yourself and say, this is about self-awareness. You're a practitioner. What can you do? If you're working in a really negative team, what can you do to take care of yourself so you get through this? Because I tell you, misery loves company, and people who are negative, we know that it impacts on your mental well-being. I don't want that. I don't mind having a complaint and a moan and talking about things being difficult, but I also need to focus on optimism because it's good for my health, resilience, and different techniques that will keep me going through this time.
Great. Happens to all of us. Do you know of any apps that help the process of collecting what you're grateful for each day?
I've seen some spreadsheets where you can, sometimes you can buy a gratitude diary, so people actually journal it. Other times I keep a list on my phone. I don't know if there are apps that collect gratitude, but I know that there are certainly books, diaries, things you can write down. In fact, I'm seeing loads if you go out there. It's gratitude diaries, things that are collecting. And I think people are moving globally and saying gratitude is key. I'm seeing it everywhere. So there may be an app out there. The only thing I've seen is diaries, books, ways to record it, positives. Now, there are some apps that give you a little boost each day. I'll put them down. They'll give you a little message that will be really positive about something good in the day or a quote. I've got some apps that I use that send me a little thing to remind me to be positive, and they'll give me a little prompt, and they might have a nice picture and calming music. So again, I'm using prompts because I'm retraining myself to feel differently. So again, I'll put the apps out on the list and ask you to look at them.
Brilliant, thank you. How can we stop work frustrations negatively affecting our home life and home relationships?
Oh gosh, that's such a big one, isn't it? It's really easy to say leave it at the door. Isn't that easy? It doesn't always work like that. So one of the things is turn your phone off. So I try and get people not to check work when they're at home. Have a proper break, because otherwise it blurs into work life. Now, this is even harder if you work from home, but I am talking to people about having a separate space. If you're working from home, separate space. Turn your phone off, pack your stuff up at the end of the day. So physically, create a distance. Mentally, I go through this exercise again of recognizing that I'm not indispensable. Is it urgent? Do I really need to do it? Or is this my sort of over-conscientiousness coming out? There's all sorts of little tips and techniques, but one of the biggest ones is have a cut-off point at the end of the day. The other thing I do sometimes is I think 3 things that went well, check my colleagues are okay, turn the phone off, and know it'll all be there in the morning. So it's also about retraining your brain that you are far more useful well than you are tired and overstretching your boundaries. So again, good boundaries are key. Work should only contact us if it's urgent, not just follow up, not casual. And don't let your hours stretch creep, because that leads to tiredness. And also sometimes say, I'm going to turn my, I put on their thinking time. I will block in thinking time in my calendar. Friday afternoon is thinking time. It's when I plan my meetings. It's when I check ahead. It's when I check out what's on. So make sure you build in planning time. We shouldn't be working in this crazy sort of way where you get home and you're too exhausted to do the stuff that I've told you, like find joy. You actually have to block out thinking time. Now, remember, during COVID, I think we are cognitively affected. We think more slowly. It's really hard to multitask. That's okay. Everyone's going through this. Let's just recognize it and say, I can get through less in a day. And have evenings where you are not doing any work. Get that phone off. Have evenings where you are switching off and you are able to connect if you do something. If you get occupied in something else, you won't think about work. So do something, plan your joy. What is it? Is it the film you're going to watch, something small? Is it some new hobby you're going to take up? Get occupied so that you distract your mind from thinking about work too much.
That's brilliant, thank you. We're running out of time now, but I think we've got time for one more question. So how do you speak to colleagues who are anxious themselves and often misinterpret what you are trying to say, especially if they worry about what you have said if you speak directly to them, but do not respond to a positive approach or spin either?
Yeah. So part of that oversensitivity is due to us being really stressed. So one of the things that I do is active listening. So if I'm talking to a very sensitive colleague, I let them talk. I don't interrupt them. I let them talk, and then I paraphrase what they've said so they know that I've understood it. So we get into these tangles sometimes when we're not active listening, when we're problem solving. So if you have a very sensitive colleague or a colleague who misinterprets easily, I let them talk, and then I tentatively check. I'll say, Hope, can I just check? Is this what you meant? And then Hope says yes or no, but I'm also building rapport because she thinks, oh, Cath's listening to me, she's checking it out. So you check tentatively. Do not problem solve. The biggest thing we can give ourselves is don't problem solve. Don't problem solve. You're not counsellors. Do not problem solve. Let people tell you the vent. Check out you've understood, and then give them nicely. Hope, what do you think you'll do about that? Because one of the things that we're not parents at work. And we're not counsellors at work unless you are a counsellor. Don't fall into that role. Your colleagues might want to download. They might want to give off. That doesn't mean they want you to solve it. They just want to talk. That's okay. And when you've listened, say to them nicely, what do you think you'll do about that? Do you know, most people know what they're going to do. They just wanted you to hear it. Don't mistake yourself for a counsellor or a parent at work. You're not. Step out of those conversations. Give them your empathy. So don't multitask when you're telling me the story. I'm not going to scroll on my phone or look at my watch. But do not problem solve. Do not problem solve. Staff are anxious. What are they going to do about it? It's not your issue to solve. There are lots of resources out there. What do you think you'll do about that? What have you tried? Ask them to get back into the adult mode and tell you what they're going to do about it. You don't give them the clues. Because guess what? Most people, when they're telling you a story, already know what the answer is. They just want you to hear it. Don't want you to fix it. That's the difference.
Thank you. I think that's a brilliant and very helpful tip to end on there. So thank you very much for another brilliant session with lots of helpful tips. I can see all the messages of thanks coming through and people finding it really, really useful today. So thank you all for joining us, and Cathe for spending time and sharing those tips, and a really enjoyable session.